Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Hey, welcome in, everyone. It's good to see everyone in chat.
Yeah, we got a few people popping in already. They're getting here early tonight.
Yes, they are. I was going to say that intro, we've had a meteor shower the last few nights. And the other night I saw like 15 meteors. And one of them, believe it or not, looked almost like that intro. It had an orange tail and it just streaked all the way across the sky. And I went, whoa, that looks like our intro. It was really cool. I wish I would have captured that.
Yeah, well, we've captured a couple on video, but I think we shared one or two of them. I mean, we have so many hours of video to put up, and we try to get as much out as possible. But we do have a few meteors. We have some orbs, some skyfish, some moving objects in the sky. So if you guys all go over to our Midwest Night Watchers on YouTube, you should be seeing us right now on that channel, and you can go over there and check out all our other videos and all our guest videos. And tonight we have Nichole Weber, aka Coley. So you probably know her from Coley and Marquis show.
Yep.
So we look forward to talking to Nichole tonight. Or I guess I should have asked her if she wanted to be called Coley or Nichole.
Well, we'll ask her when we pull her up.
I'll probably call her Coley because that's what I always call her. So I think that's what she goes by when she's online. So yeah, it's going to be a great experience, a great show. We're talking to Nichole about paranormal, possibly UFOs. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'll cover the gambit and see where this show ends up going. So I hope everybody's going to enjoy this, and make sure you go over and check out Coley and Marquise tonight because they'll be on shortly after our show.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably end up putting that in the chat, a link for you guys, so everybody can follow right from us over to them. You got anything else you want to add, Jane?
No, let's bring her on and let's get this
right.
going. She's got some good stories.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Coley.
Hi, Coley.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, I heard the name. You know what? I answer to Nichole, Coley, or Nick. I mean, all three of them are just fine.
Yeah.
So if you call me Coley, that's totally fine with me. Whatever.
That's probably what we'll stick with, Coley, because I think that's what we've known you by mostly. So.
Yeah, I
So
tried
I was
to switch
telling everybody in our chat that you and Marquise have your show, and you'll be on shortly after we get done with this interview.
Yes, we will be. Yes, definitely. So that's pretty cool. I'm seeing some people I recognize in chat. So it's nice.
Mhm.
Tim Mothman made it, and Chi-Rho Sounds. It's like, it's like a family. So it's been wonderful.
That's usually how we meet everybody. We're either in spaced out radio chat, or maybe your guys' chat, or the Jessica the Cryptid Hunters chat, and we see all the same people over and over. It seems like we all make the same rounds, or mostly anyway.
Yeah, I call it chat jumping. Tim I'll after the show, I'll be like, "Where are we going next?" If I'm up, and so he'll tell me, and then I'm like, "Okay." So that's how we ended up last night. I said it's fun.
Yeah, you guys all came over to Geezer Geeks last night. Our other podcast that we do.
Yeah, we had a raid.
That was so funny. Oh my gosh. Did you see the clip I sent you? With Jim Goodall? I said like a minute. It was hilarious. With the geezer shorts.
We end up getting quite a few clips of Jim. I think Jessica and him a couple years ago were on the dance floor at the Spaced Out Radio show, and they were dancing, and people were sending that clip all over the place.
He is hilarious. He's always good for like the bloopers. I say like something he'll spit out. But yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, Jim's a good guy. I've known him for quite a while, and it's nice doing a show with him every Saturday. He always has great stories.
Oh yeah,
senior geezer.
I know the first when he was like coming on our show first, and he's like, I gotta let them know, I gotta find out, because he really loves that going on there on Saturday night. So he got permission, and then he's like, I let him know. And as soon as like that time came, he was ready to hop up and get on the show. So I thought that was cool.
I remember
Very
that night.
cool.
He was on, it was actually Mr. B show. It wasn't Geezer that night, I don't think, or was it Geezer's on? But he
I don't know.
said, "You guys, I gotta leave."
I don't
So we
remember.
went over to Marquise and your sister.
Yeah.
We were on, I think, for another 3 hours after that. That was the longest show I think you guys did. So
I
Jim
think we did 5 hours or more. It ends up,
Oh,
we're
wow.
gonna do an hour
Wow.
and a half, and it ends up being 5 or 6 hours by the
Yeah.
time we're done.
Oh, wow. That is a while. I thought 3 hours. I was like, oh, 3 hours, but 5 hours? That's some real dedication right there.
I
You guys
think
must have
our
had so
longest
much fun
one on
you
our
lost track of time.
the Night Owl Lounge has what, been 6 hours?
I think about 5
6
and a half,
Yeah.
6
hours?
hours for the Night Owl
Just
Lounge. It was close to 5 in the
chatting with
morning, I think.
everybody in chat and, just having a good time, and, like,
Oh,
before you
that's
know it, it's
funny.
like the UK people start piling in just when you're getting ready to think, "Okay, it's time to go to bed." Then the UK wakes up, it's like, "Oh, I guess we're gonna stay on a couple
Yeah,
more
they're just
hours."
waking up. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there is a time change. I've done, like, interviews over there, and it's always, like, 2 in the afternoon, so I figure they probably around that time, they're just getting up,
Yep.
rolling out of
So
bed.
let's start getting into what you got going on. So you're obviously you do your own podcast with Marquise, and you can
Mhm.
just tell us a little bit about your background if you'd like, and then we'll just start getting into some paranormal or ghosts or UFOs wherever you want to take us, and we'll see where we end up.
Yeah, I think that I have grew up, a medium channeler. Um, since the time I was like 4, I started off first seeing auras around people, and then it slowly developed. And then by the time I was like going into like teen or womanhood, it really like kicked it up a notch. Um, that part of my life, ever since UFOs, is kind of like undershadowed. I think not a lot of people even realize. Like I done so many paranormal investigations and slept in some of the most haunted places in America, and been on teams where I'll go in and first and do a walk around, and I try and identify, like, and get the information, and then the team will go in and kind of investigate it. Um, so I have a life. I mean, some of the paranormal stuff has been just, I said that's the world I recognize. Like that was the world I was really comfortable in. And it took me a long time to get comfortable into the UFO. So I was actually in,
Hmm.
when I saw my first UFO, it was in an old cemetery. It's in between Bernard, Iowa and Cascade, Iowa. It's called St. Patrick's Church. So you can Google it if you'd like. It's in the middle of nowhere. So I was like, oh, this is a creepy church. And when we go into the church, like they didn't lock it before like all the other stuff happened with COVID, whatever. So they didn't lock it. So we go in to the church. This is where we started, and then it would lock. Like it had like one of those turn. And then I just remember I'd bring my neighbors along. I was like, come on, I've got radios. You guys are good to go. And my neighbor's like freaking out, trying to like turn the lock. It wouldn't. And then I went over. I was like, hold on a minute. It was like, you can't lock us in here. As soon as I said that, unlocked. So, I mean, I
Wow.
thought that was fun for like 5 or 6 times. So then I'm like, we need to come back and check out that cemetery in the back. So it dated back to the Civil War era. And so I was actually taking paranormal shots back there. And then my neighbor, Jessica, we're looking out and we see this like controlled contrail. Like it looked like it was lit up like maybe like a neon or LED. We didn't have a lot of LED lights back then. It's
Right.
2017. It sounds stupid, but we really didn't. And so it just like glowed, and it was just like I just remember watching it. And then it was like creeping towards us, and I was like, well, I
Hmm.
think it's coming this way. And she's like, I said, call my brother. For some reason, I didn't have my phone, but I had my big camera with me. I was like, call my brother, call my brother. Because going back 2 weeks prior, he and my son had saw one on the same stretch of road, but it was just, I mean, maybe a mile apart. And I remember him coming and saying, I saw a UFO. And I was like, oh, that's cool, like, okay. I
Wow.
did not that I didn't believe him, but I mean, like, he was like, shaking. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, Eric." So then then when I was like, "Call my brother." So I got him on the phone and I was like, "Eric, what do I do?" Because at this point, it's like slowly now like coming towards us. And I was like, I mean, probably a
Hmm.
half mile. He's like, "Oh, if I were you, I'd stay there." And I was like, "I don't think you would. I really don't, but okay, I'm staying here. I'm like, my feet are planted. I dropped my camera. I did get some shots before, dropped my camera, and I just stood there like, okay, like what's gonna happen? So it came all the way. MUFON measured it to have come 30 feet away and be 50 foot in diameter, a total of 1 mile from where I had photographed it first. Came all the way. And then I was like watching it and I was like, wow, this is it was something that big, 50 foot in diameter. You can't question whether or not it's real. Like it was there. My neighbor saw it. She's like screaming from her car, let's go, let's go. And I was like, I'm still like, I don't know if I'm in shock but I felt like I was like locked into it. So when I broke and looked at her, that thing had, when I looked up again, it was like, because she was kind of down in the road a little bit, you kind of look down, and it had gone between the other two trees. And I was like, wow. And so she's still at this point now, she's like really having a fit. And she's like, I gotta go get in the car. So I looked, went down, and we both watched that thing shoot off and break into
Wow.
like 8 light spheres. Yeah. And I was
Oh,
like, we gotta find them. Yeah, so we were like on the roads and like I was like the back roads here. It's not like normal like roads that you see. I mean, you're like if another car passes, your path, and it's just like it's a desolate area. But we did find it, what we thought was it. And we looked up, got out of the car, looked up, and around I could see like a dark gray, metallic gray, and that's what color it was. But it was almost like we were
Mm.
seeing the underneath of it. But the weird part is we looked over at the telephone lines. I was like, Jessica, look over there. And I looked at the other ones because they were running both sides of the road, and it looked like somebody was just up there shaking them. So
oh,
they were like,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
wow.
So we went and then we drove back, and I remember she pulled into her garage and we both looked at each other and we're like, what was that? And I was like, well, who do you even report this to? Like,
right.
what? Shoot,
Mhm.
I don't know. So I Googled it and found MUFON. And then MUFON investigator came out and I was talking to him. Dave Creeder was his name. He's still with MUFON in Iowa. And he's like, I said, "Will I see another one, Dave?" And he's like, "I think so. I think so." And so I didn't really think too much of it. And then 6 months later, around December, because this happened July of 2017. So around December, I was getting ready to move. And this is where it got weird. So I was filming these like two orbs. They were almost like communicating with each other. They're flashing colors. They're like right above the building. And I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta call on Dave in the morning. He's not gonna believe this. And so then when I went back and I was looking at the footage, I found the night before where I had allegedly been out there filming a craft that was pretty low. Like you could identify it, like, and you could see it come like right over my awning. And it was like a pretty solid, unmistakable craft. And I was
Mm.
like, I didn't go out last night and take any pictures the night before. I
Oh.
went out that night, but then there was a night prior. So I was like, all of a sudden I was like struck by this like flashback almost. And I was like, oh, like I think I had missing time. Like, is
Oh,
that what it
Oh, yeah.
means? I don't know. So I yeah. So I called Dave. I was like, all right, you got to explain this to me here. I got this, 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 and this, and I told him, I said, what's the protocol? And he's like, what do you mean the protocol? Well, what's step 2? Okay. Step 1 is you see the craft, and now I have missing like time I'm not aware of, either that or I'm sleepwalking, taking pictures, which I doubt. I've never done this before. If I had, it was like once in a lifetime. It could have been. But what do I do now? He's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, you're
Hmm.
supposed to know this stuff, right? You're like, move on. Like, there's like protocol, right?
Right.
And he's like, doesn't work that way. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Great. So yeah, so fast forward, and once I had moved, I guess going back to, I had cervical fusion in my neck, and I was having all sorts of like medical problems. I actually lost my right side. I wasn't able to even like feed myself. I just kind of dropped over. It was really weird. Um, I had 2 discs replaced in my neck and then, like, the metal and the fusion, and I had all sorts of complications after. And, like, I couldn't my thumb was numb, I, like, had they said,
Mm.
"You have neuropathy, you have bursitis, you have" I mean, there was nothing that I didn't have, I felt like. The went to, a physical therapist, and she's like, "You've got more issues than this. I don't even feel comfortable treating you." And so I was like, "Well,
Wow.
what do I do
Hmm.
now?" You know? Yeah, it was
Hmm.
like I my thumb, like and my hand was swollen, like, twice the size. I had no balance. I'd be there, like, standing there, and I just, like, tip over. So I couldn't
Wow.
if I threw a ball, it'd go, like, 2 feet in front of me. So it wasn't until the experiences that, of ET like that, I started to get better. I'd say after the first one was like 50%. It felt like somebody took a
Hmm.
lightning rod and like I was charged. And I was like, I remember someone came behind me and I turned around and I was like, "Whew," like just, I mean, it was just like, I don't know, I was in some weird state, and I struck him, and he's like, "How did you do that? Like, you went from barely being able to stand up, now you're like a ninja?" I'm like, "I guess so. I don't
Wow.
know." I like
That's crazy.
yeah, I mean, well,
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah, it is too, because 'cause I'm sitting here like, "What's happening?" Like, they said the, curve on, like, getting better and healing had already passed at, like, the almost a 2-year marker. So I was well out, like, going into the 3rd year. So I had
hmm.
I at that point, I honestly was thinking, I was like, "Can I live the rest of my life like this?" Like, you know what I mean? I was in
Right.
pain every day. I wasn't,
What's your
like
quality of life gonna be?
moving and walking and doing else right, right, and my
Hmm.
son, he's so active, like so it really was an emotional period in my life, and it really came at the right time because I don't know, like, I just I really was questioning a lot of things, like, "Man, how am I gonna do this?" Like, because the pain was horrible, the nerve pain, and, like, it would just shoot up my arm, and then they said neuropathy, and, like, I was like, I'm supposed to have another back surgery, never needed after that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, yeah, and so that was, like, amazing, the amazing part of it. So I never even though, like, there's a lot of stuff, after you have an experience with them, kinda freaks you out for a few days. You gotta take about 3 days and really come to terms with it. And then it's like kinda lifts, because at first I was like I asked for the tour. I was seeing these like crafts and I was like, "Oh, I want that too. I want the nickel tour," I kept saying or something like that, and whoa, I got the nickel tour. So, but I thought maybe we could schedule a time, because the paranormal, it's totally different, like
Call up
yeah.
a
"How about
UFO
you come next
Uber.
Tuesday?" Yeah, right? I mean, that doesn't work that way either. So they come on I say we're in their space and their time. Whereas the paranormal, they're in our realm, but the way I see them anyway is they're like really like fog, like kind and you can stick your hand through it, It's not
Right.
like it's
Mhm.
these were very physical. So yeah, I'm not sure where the lines cross. That's been the $1,000,000 question is like, where did the paranormal and the UFO? But I almost feel like I have to focus on one or the other because I used to be able to just transition really quick and I'd be in my medium mode and I'd be like, oh, I can see this, kind of
Hmm.
describe for people and what's going on. I do remember when I was growing up, they were very kind of intrusive. So I was trained in a group. There was a group of us, like I don't even know a doctor, professor from one of the local colleges, and some other people were in it. And so they taught us how, because I'm like, they keep coming and giving me addresses, and they want me to take Christmas gifts to people, and they want like, I remember I was younger yeah, I mean, like, it was like, okay, it was just, like, over and other people would be there, and I know they couldn't see what I was seeing, so I'd kinda be like, "Yeah, okay." Um, and it was distracting, so I kinda learned to get a better hold on it. I remember one time I was a kid wasn't a kid, I was, like, 16, and I was working at this fireworks store across on the Wisconsin side. And it's, like, all tin, like, trailers or whatever, and this guy's in there, and he comes through, and he's looking for his daughter, but he's deceased, and he's, like, he's gotta be from the early 19th century. I was like sir, we'll talk about this in a little bit because there's a customer coming in. I need to find, he's so desperate to find his daughter. So we will talk about this when the customer leaves, okay? And so then he didn't, the guy was in there. And all of a sudden, you hear this banging, and the guy looks at me, and I just kind of smiled. He's like,
Huh.
"Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I think so. Maybe a stick or something." He's like, "I don't think that was a stick." And I was like, I just said, probably just yeah, go, let's look at these fireworks over here. And I thought, "Yeah, just give me a minute." So once they left, because they don't really, I mean, he's on a mission. He doesn't really want to hear he's dead and that he's, but I don't know if she's out there reunited, whatever. But had a little chat with them afterwards. But yeah, so that part of it, once they know that you can see them, sometimes they get a little aggressive. They're desperate, like to get their
Right.
message across or to get to somebody, um, which I try and empathize with a little bit, but it's like, don't catch me or just we gotta have some boundaries here. So I kind of learned, throughout time and it like progressed and progressed. Like I wasn't very good at hearing them at first. And then it took a while for me to like get that part of it down because it's more like telepathy. It's not like you hear a person talking in your head. It's a voice in your head talking. And then you're like, is that me? Or is that, something else? Is that no, I don't think when I can talk over it and it's still talking, I don't think that's me. That or I've
Right.
got something I gotta address here.
Something going
Um,
on.
yeah, so right. And I was a mental health therapist, outpatient mental health therapist at the time. So I started writing all my UFO things on clinical notes when that part happened. So I'd be like writing it out. I thought, man, I'm going through this DSM. Like, it's not like there's got to be a diagnosis. There's got to be a diagnosis. And then I started meeting people that were more like me and that were experiencing it. And so we kind of built a team and that like experiencers, they know one another. It's like we stick together. And that part of it, like I had a little support group. So when the abductions were like really happening and I could talk about them like with my friends and they'd be like, oh, they'd like really have empathy for me. Like, it's going to be okay. You know how it is, just a couple days, because you feel like almost like flu-like, but I don't know if it's like, you're just trying to digest, what's happening because it's as real as like the car driving down the street or it's real
Right.
as, like anything is. Um, so that part of it was hard. It's like, I've had vivid dreams before. But I remember one of the first times, the missing time, I had moved from my other place to my new place and I was like up and it was super late. It was like 5 in the morning. And I was watching the clock and it was like 5:20. There's three of them, like the microwave, the stove, and I can't remember what the third one was, but it was a digital clock. And I watched them blink 3 times and then it went to like 5:40 and I was like, whoa. But during
Huh.
that time, I remember this like void, like this of nothingness, like this shifting back where it's like total and absolute nothingness. So that's why I figure they have to be different dimensionally. And I don't feel like they're
Right.
the craft that you see that are on the ground. Yeah, I get really excited about them, but I don't feel like anybody's really driving them or flying them. I wouldn't call them flying, whatever they're doing in them. I don't really feel like that. I feel like they are that they tune in to you, and so I feel like they are what they are. But when you're ET, I've not experienced like the craft and then gone to the ET. It's like been one or the other. So
Oh,
when the ET experiences happen, yeah. So that part I can't explain, but I have had markings. I have come in contact with three of them, three different kinds. The first ones I was restrained, and I asked why, and they said because of contamination. They're very sterile. And we had a guest on, and he started talking about it and how much they worry about us and some of the diseases and things that we have. I thought, oh, maybe that's what the contamination part is about. A lot of times when they do speak to you or you ask things, it's either comes in like a picture or it comes like in words. So sometimes like they showed me a card that looked like the fool's card, or like they didn't show me a card. They showed me a picture of what looked like would be on a fool's card, and like
Okay.
the Joker or something, like what I feel, I don't know, but it always, then I'll find out eventually down the road what that means. And I said, well, why am I here, and what's my part in all this? And they said, you're here for communication. Okay. So I tried going everywhere and telling everyone, and that didn't get work. Everywhere we go, my friends are like, do you have to ask? I'm like, yeah. Of course I do. As soon as we walk in, we're like, anybody see a UFO around here? Like, and then, going back, it's like we're in some smaller towns, and there's always some kind person that come forward and be like, I know I saw the fireball, or no, I saw this, or I'm like, okay, so what do we do with it now?
So
and they're like,
what did your
know.
UFO, or you've had several obviously, but what was the shape of it? I mean, you said it was kind of a grayish metal shape, the one you were talking about?
It was like a metallic gray
Metallic
around
gray.
like the under part of it, but it had like the LED, which we describe now as LED lights around it. So it was like
Okay.
your typical, like your
It
saucer,
was like a flying
your
saucer
typical
shape. It wasn't a
ones.
cigar. It wasn't a triangle.
No, but I've seen triangles. Yeah, but no,
Okay.
not that one.
Right.
Yeah, that it was just like I always wonder, because everybody sees them different. I'm like, is it like, is this enough just to stop me and be like, because you can't deny once you've seen something that's 50 foot in diameter and 30 feet away, and you have a witness. It's like, okay, we didn't both dream this up. So I just always wonder. I call them points of reflection. Like, oh, was this there? Like, to start this journey, so I knew without a shadow of a doubt that they were real. That's what I feel a lot of it is. I don't know if it's right, because you can get stuck. People get stuck in those memories. Like, you're trying to put together. I said it's like trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle, and all you got are like 3 middle pieces, and you're trying to like in deciphering some of
Right.
those. Really, like
Yep.
they give us a corner piece at least, like, but nah, they just like random middle pieces. So that's what I kind of broke away from that then, because I was like, do I need to figure out exactly what happened? No, I just want to know what why me, or what am I doing here? What's
Right.
this all about? Was I at the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time? It's like you don't know. But it changes your whole course of life. From that point forward, I couldn't let it go. Like, I could not let those things go. I was like eating, sleeping, I was out every day, every night at the same time. Between 7 and 9, I was out at I was that dedicated for years. And I'd go out to the same location, and I'd be out there. It didn't matter if it's dead middle of winter, and we know how those Midwest winters are. I had like a little space heater I try and pull out with me, and I would stand like, yeah. And the neighbors, if they all knew, I had like a little neighborhood watch group, and by the time I was just like, they thought I was crazy as it was. So I was like, well, we might as well just go all the way here. So, but they saw stuff. And then they started kind of keeping track on things when I wasn't around. And, we saw some really cool stuff. I have video. It's through my friend's van. It's like really crappy, like a dirty van, but it has been analyzed. And we were following, there were 2 triangles. I have probably maybe a good hour. And we went on one of these back roads, and that thing I saw come right down. I was like, it's coming down on the road. It did. It came right down in front of us. And then shot off. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
you saw that, right? She's like, yeah. She's just like beat us at our own game. But the pictures that I have of it are like 1,000 times better than trying to get video. Like, it's like sometimes they look like glowing spheres, and it's like you can't really tell, if they're how low they are, because people always assume that they're huge in size. Not always. Not always. I've seen them, like where they're orb size, or like mini basketball up to like a beach ball size. So I don't know exactly. You know, a lot of people are saying maybe like looking at this more from a multidimensional perspective. I don't know.
Well, people
I'm
say
trying
it
to
doesn't
find
matter
the
what
answer.
the size of the craft is. Once you go inside, you're beyond dimensions. So it could look
Mhm.
like a football stadium inside, but yet it looks smaller or just as big as a truck or a van that we would have on Earth. So I
Right.
don't know if they're
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
way or just some, or I don't know that either.
Well, the same with
I
orbs. An orb is so small and tiny, and people see beings coming out of these orbs. So it's got to be something that you go inside and it's massive. It doesn't matter if it's tiny or not. So,
Well,
like
maybe
the
maybe that's a
dimensionally,
jump
it
interesting.
gets
point.
bigger.
Maybe that's a jump point, though. Maybe they're in their dimension,
Yeah.
and that orb is a light
Mm,
spot or a place where they actually just come out of. They're not actually in the orb. That's just the energy where they come out of.
yeah,
I've heard that
something.
too. Now that would make sense to me. That would make sense.
Mm,
I've seen, you see, okay, so paranormal orbs, like that to me is paranormal, like seeing those. But then when you're seeing them come across, and MUFON's even identified, like I got a picture of one, you know, streaming across. But I always wondered too, because one time I had probably the weirdest experience that I had is when I went out to my parking lot and I looked up and there were like, I felt like there were hundreds of them. Maybe there's like 100. I couldn't count. There were so many of them. And I remember they were encapsulated orbs where it was like, if you were outside that area, you wouldn't be able to see them. So I'm looking and I remember saying, wow, there are a lot of you. And it echoed 3 times. And I was like,
oh,
whoa, you know, and then some were like more playful where I felt like they were kind of going, ducking in behind the trees, doing their little thing.
mhm.
And I was like, oh, they seem like really playful. And then the night creeper, that's what I call him, the ball of energy that I think was going to electrocute me. He was coming and he's coming closer. He's coming closer. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I might have to go inside on this one. I usually don't run from them. I'm usually pretty excited, but I think he's going to zap me and I'm going to be dust here. So I ran inside and my friend was there. I was like, will you please look out the window and make sure I don't go anywhere? She's like, what? I'm like, no, just trust me. Just look outside the window. And she's like, is it a UFO thing? I said, yes. She's like, sometimes you see things. Maybe you saw too much. Maybe you shouldn't look. I said, go. I'm not going to be looking. You're going to be looking. I'm going to be standing out there. And if I go anywhere, you better be watching and tell somebody to call MUFON. I don't know, but please, if I'm like a pile of dust, tell them what happened. So I went back out and then it started coming again, slowly creeping up. And I made it, I think it's probably like 4 feet from me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. But I backed in the door and I got out of there. I said, I don't think
Wow.
that I can get on there. Yeah. I was
Mm,
like, you're going to turn me into dust. Like, and then nobody's going to know. I'll just blow away with the rest of it on the sidewalk. But yeah, there was so many. And they lower probably, I would say, because I'm 5'6", so I would say at least 3 foot off the ground. I looked and there was a red one and a blue one. I always get confused if it's a
mm,
red one and a green one, a red one and a blue one. But the two that were low there were different colors. The rest of them were just like your light electricity balls, a sphere, like spheres,
mm.
light balls, I call them. But yeah, so that was super odd. We've had some super odd experiences with them coming down, but I was trying to look for patterns and trying to look for any way I was out to, I don't know what I was out doing, trying to
Could you
find
sense why
level
one
2.
was one color and one was another? Did you ever find out anything like mental telepathy or
Mm.
a paranormal sense or
I don't know, and that was always confusing too. I was like, "Well, why are there 2 of them? Is this how they have to be so I can see? Is there some sort of, like, field?" And then when they started to like, when they left, it wasn't like they just all left at one time. We saw them for probably a good week after, and they were just like they kinda dwindled away. So it
Hmm.
wasn't like, you know, there were, so yeah, I'd see like, and one time we counted like 15 of them over a tree. I was like, Sarah, look. Sarah, my other neighbor, I was like, you got to look at this. They're there. And she's like, yeah, I see them. I see them. So there's like, I mean, a good 15 of them. And then it just kind of kept going from there. So they didn't all just go away. So I didn't know, like, if certain times, if, more, some are prevalent compared to others.
Mm.
The problem is that nobody seems to see them the same way. It's
Right.
like you see them, and that's what makes me like wonder, like, oh, are these like points of reflection, or are these actually like, you know, I don't know. I have no clue. I'd be
Wow.
speculating, but I started this quest for answers and this journey for answers. So I'm hoping that that will be one of them that I figure out, but it always just
And you get
leads to
more
more
questions.
questions.
Yeah, more
Yeah, yeah.
questions.
I know that,
Have
like,
you
a
noticed
mystery solved.
have you noticed it's getting to the
Doesn't work
point that
that
the
way.
paranormal is becoming normal?
Yeah, see, going back, that was so abnormal, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
"I'm out going with sleeping at the," and then people would be like, "That's not normal, and I'm like, "Now, okay,
Now it's normal.
20 years
Mhm.
later." Mhm. Oh, yeah. Going back then, it was like, "Shh, hush," like, that's some
Yeah.
people think it's, evil, or I'm like, "Oh, for God's sakes, let's get
Do you
over
have any
this." But
memory of
it
what
took a
the
while.
do you have any memory of what the inside of the ship that you were on looked like at all?
Oh,
Was it
yeah,
like
yeah.
was it
Um
like a Star Trek thing? Was it just like a metal room with a surgical table? I mean, what did you see?
Okay, the first one I saw, which were the shorter grays, which
Mm.
their skin seemed reflective of light. So I'm
Mm.
not convinced that they're like gray. They'd almost, you remember those old glow in the dark? It was like a yellow almost cast to it, like when you paint something for that glow in the
Yeah,
dark paint when we were
right.
younger. Okay, kind of remind me of that, where I felt like they were glowing from the light. And then on the
Mm.
inside of that ship, that's when I was that's like restrained. I could see myself, like look down and see myself, but I also could see them like through myself on the table, which is weird. So it's kind of like a out of body experience maybe, or
Okay.
something like that. It was um it was in a room, I couldn't see behind. They did have some sort of, like, tray, medical equipment, but what I remember most about them is that they had suction cups on their fingers, and it, like,
Mm.
really freaked me out. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I just like a octopus or something, I didn't like it. So, that part of it, I remember getting stuck on. It took me a long time to become more conscious. I had to, like, tell myself throughout the day, "Okay, if you get taken, ask them this, ask them," put these questions more.
Right.
Notice your surroundings, notice your surroundings. Can you smell, taste, hear? Um, that time I was just so taken back by it, my first one. But I remember looking in their eyes. Well, the one that was right in front of me, and his eyes were like, I mean, no pupils, nothing. I said it was like looking into eternity. Like, I don't even know how to explain
Mm.
it. Like looking, I mean, it was just like looking into something of the great, like, and that's, I was overwhelmed by that. And they did answer a few questions or whatever, and then um I was back. And then I had a marking on my abdomen that almost looked like scoop marks. And it had like I
Mm.
saw numbers and letters, and people are like that I've talked to about it. They said, well, that's normal for experiencers to identify because it looked like a serial number almost. And I was like, why is there numbers and letters in here? But it didn't last more than maybe like a few days. I'd say like 4 days at the most. And then, I had a few other ones. I had one on my they were all on my right side. I had one on my back, and it was like a pretty hefty kind of bruise, but inside of it was kind of a similar type structure of what I think look like numbers and letters. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but then, yeah, so then we moved on from the small grays, and then it was the tall grays. And there, I'll get don't let me get stuck on this child there, because there it really bothered me at the time. I was a mental health therapist, outpatient for children, and I saw a child who looked kind of like us. He had bald head, and he was just sitting there waiting, and just sitting there waiting. And I looked down the hallway, which was like a triangular, and it was all different of like what we call now LED lights, like red, yeah, like different colors, going down.
Right.
And I remember looking down. They let me freely walk around. Nobody acted like I was doing anything I shouldn't be doing or
Huh.
anything like that. And they
Oh.
actually helped me understand the most, I would say. Because I was able to, when I'd ask them questions, they would simulate it in like holographic things. Like I'd be like, well, how do you, this or, different things. I asked like when you guys, I remember asking them about memory recall. And what they do is they actually simulate, like they go back into that day, that time, but it all plays out like it played out at that moment in time. But it's like holographic, and then once it's done, but it seems very real. You're interacting very real. And then it was when the time's up, it just like goes back, so you're not really tampering with time or with what happened or what's
Okay.
supposed to happen, I guess. They also showed
So it's
me
not like
how
physically
they
going back. It's not like they took you physically
right.
back to this time. You're just seeing like a movie play out in a hologram. Wow, cool.
Yes. And very real, like very, very real. Like you wouldn't know, like if you were in it, you wouldn't realize that it wasn't holographic at that time. And we didn't have like, those nifty VR goggles or anything during that time that I can think of that were that far progressed in 2017. The toggers, I'd say they were probably about 7.5, 8 feet tall. When I saw them, okay, so they were down. There's like a long triangular hallway, and I was by that kid first. I'll tell you about that story. But when I saw them, they had like different. I think it was a med bay. That's what I kind of got
Okay.
from it. They didn't confirm one way or another, but I was thinking because I saw them come by with a cart, and I saw them, and they had like I think black and red were the colors. So I'm like, I think that's how they're identifying them, and I just assumed it was a med bay. But then this child now, okay, so we got questions about this child, and dummy me, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, he reminds me, looks like he's about my son's age. I was like, hey buddy. And then I was like, he didn't say anything. I was like, you can come to my house and play, and we don't have to tell anyone that you're there, okay? You come down to earth. You just come to my house. I'm not going to tell anyone. My son, I have to prepare my son, but he'll understand, okay? You just come on down and you come play. Because I felt like he's just waiting there and waiting there. And then they showed, then this is where it kind of gets weird. So then one of them, I said, what do you, why are the kids here? Like that bothered me. What are you doing with the kids? And then they showed me, and this lady, well, I just shouldn't say a lady. I'm assuming that's what the ET was, but looked like he was dressed out of the J.C. Penney's catalog. Had this like rose big hat on and like this dress you'd like dig out of your grandma's like old chest closet
Really?
or something. And you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
And then they were simulating like golf, how you play golf, but they were like in their, their virtual. And I thought, man, are they preparing these kids to go down and go? I don't think we've seen the children yet. I don't think the children have been brought forward yet. But there's no way this kid would have blended in. I mean, he needed some work because he was not, like, he didn't bust a smile. He didn't, and then like he was just like, waiting, like, yeah. Have you ever seen The Golden Child
Yeah.
movie?
Right.
You ever
Yep.
seen it with? Okay, you remember that kid in the thing that was real? He kind of reminded me of that kid that was in there and did his little thing. But he was very focused, and it was just like he was just waiting, just waiting, just waiting. And one thing, he had a ball cap on. So I thought, well, it didn't dawn on me till later. I was really thinking about it. I'm like, well, what if this is some sort of training facility for them to come and blend in on Earth? Because, as a mental health therapist, I was working with kids with reactive attachment disorder. And that's kind of what we were doing with them, is teaching them how to blend in with other kids. And, because they have definitely some unique
Right.
things they do or personalities. So, there's different challenges like knives, and not that kid would have done it, but yeah. So it's kind of acclimating him in there. So I thought maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. Don't exactly
I mean,
know. I
they
don't
would
feel like I was its mother or anything. That's no. I connected with it
right.
because it was my son's age. He looked like he was my son's age at that time.
Yeah, because they would have to
And yeah,
acclimate to our society, and that's a pretty big adjustment, I would assume, for somebody to just all of a sudden come here and like, okay, how do I act like these weirdos?
yeah, yeah.
How
And
do I fit in?
they
How do I know where
right.
to fit in or who to fit in with?
Right.
Maybe that's why they brought
Yeah.
me up there. I thought that at one point. I thought, well, maybe I was there to show them how loony that we are down here. Because they're just
Ah,
showing me. Maybe they're like, they could keep an eye on that lady. It's like,
just act crazy like this
okay.
person, and they'll all just leave you alone. No, I don't know.
I've always been under nurtured or cared for. I just wanted to go and like grab them and give them a big hug. Probably freaked out, but that's was my automatic instinct because
So what other parts of
they're
the
not
craft did you get to see? Did you get to see where they were navigating from? Did you get to see any windows to look out? Could you see outside at all or
on that craft. I could not. The third
Hmm.
time, now this is the third time that it happened. The three different kinds. The third time was with the ones that look like more like you and I, but they wear these glasses. I don't think their eyes are shaped like they're wearing these kind of like men in black glasses. Like
okay.
there's still no pupil, there's still nothing, but they look more like you and I. And I actually was out with my brother. We for our birthdays we'd go out UFO hunting with one another, and I felt something behind me, and I took a picture, and there they were, and I recognized him, and
Hmm.
I'm like, That's a guy. That's a guy. I remember him." But when I went now there, I was my consciousness, like memory, is of being on a planet that was like an orange, like dusty planet where they lived on the inside mostly. There's not really a whole lot on the outside of it. They lived on the inside of it. And then they showed me like I could actually like there was an archway and I could look out and someone's like, well, is there anything there like blocking that it would have been toxic or it would have been something like that? And I was like, no, I could
Hmm.
stick my head out and look. Like it was
Oh,
nothing but yeah, so they were more funny, like more joking around, kind of showing me around like what it was like. There really, like I said, there really wasn't much on the outside of it, so I couldn't get a real definitive like grasp on the location or anything like that, or even who they were. I apparently like didn't take my own suggestive input and that part of it, but yeah.
Did you
ah,
see other beings on there, like Sasquatch or any cryptids on the ships?
No. Mm-mm.
Hmm.
No, no, and they cut and I've always wanted to see a Bigfoot too. Oh my gosh, if anybody has any pointers, I've gone out. I've gotten as far as like I think we heard them or could identify by noise,
Hmm.
but I've not. I have seen cryptids. I have seen like I say they like look like paper mache, but they're like metal, and they were like there, and then it's like they back like put themselves
Hmm.
back, and they're just gone.
wow.
So, yeah, they were really interesting. And then as the further I got into it, which really kind of got weird, is I remember looking at my neighbor's house and the brick on his like house started to kind of dissipate a little bit. Like it was like
Hmm.
going away. And I was like, whoa, what's this? Is this like the Matrix? Like, am I breaking through here? I'm like, did I go too far? I don't know. But, so that made me question a few things. I do think, like, we're definitely creators. I mean, we're here creating and our human experience. Another thing is I have a really weird blood type. My grandma was an RH negative. She's the first one to see UFO. I have AB negative, which is like rare. I was jaundiced really bad as a child because I had no compatibility blood type with my parents. Um, so as I'm the only one, so I don't know what that's
Hmm.
about either. So if anybody knows anything, because I know it's like it's newer one. I would love answers on that. I haven't really found a whole lot. And like I said, there's been questions on looking back now, like, man, how much of the paranormal was the ET or with ET paranormal, or it's like I I don't know. I don't know. Those are the answers that I am searching for.
Right.
I'm open
That's
to
came up quite
suggestion.
a bit.
But I
People
I
we've talked to about blood types, whether RH negative is on the line of reptilians, or or is that how that'd be a good way of tracking to see how many abduction people, what their blood type was. I don't know if they've already done that or not, but I haven't seen anything saying that all these were a certain type or two types that were most commonly abducted.
see, what I found on it was that the RH negative were the initial ones, but then the second generation of whatever came through was a AB negative. But like I said, there's not a whole lot of information on it. It's pretty new blood type. I know people are stuck with
Mhm.
RH negative, which I definitely think that there is something to that. But to have
Yeah.
my grandmother to have her son, he's O negative. My mom was O negative, and then I may be negative. And there is like it does rarely happen, but rarely. And then you gotta think how I, I don't know. I've been working on my book. Don't get excited because I'm not getting very far very fast.
Huh,
I've hit a couple of roadblocks. The first one was, I think I was telling you earlier, that when I was a kid, I was recruited for a gifted and talented program. My grandma, there was a Montessori school, and my grandmother, the one's RH negative that saw the first UFO, and they were trying to, and that right there, I don't know if that put me on the map of some sort or some kind,
Mhm.
because that was like right around the time that I started to see the auras and see all that stuff.
Mhm.
The second really strange thing I started having like, these bad headaches. And so around the age of 12 or 13, my grandmother, she went to the Mayo Clinic to Rochester, Minnesota. It's not that far from here. Well, it is, but she didn't believe in any local medical doctors. So she took me up there. They found something near my brainstem the size of a kidney bean, and nobody's been able to identify it. Like, they put it in front of their surgeons in the neurosurgery department, which Mayo Clinic, I mean, they got I mean, that's one of
right.
the major hospitals, and, so I think and then I got wondering because I was injected with this weird metallic dye that just during the 90s when I would have been going there and had all of these MRIs, they were kicked up to like a higher magnetic frequency or magnetic frequency. And what they do, it's like a radio signal from my brain to them, and that projects the image. So I was like, that was a little that nobody has been able, it's never done anything. Then my grandmother takes me out to John Hopkins because she's going out there next. So we go out to Baltimore, Maryland, and I remember I was like, "Oh, nothing." They knew nothing. I'd never seen anything like it. I knew nothing like it. And
Hmm.
I've started to question that. And I've even sent them out. I'm like to people, I'm like, "Do you know what an implant looks like?" Or because this, what if this is a way through the process? Because I don't understand how in the middle of nowhere, this big UFO, it's 50 foot in diameter, 30 feet away. Like, where did that come from? Like,
Hmm.
why me? And people say that
Mhm.
we live in a small town. Why you? Well, what do you think I'm asking the questions for? I want to know too. Why me? Like, what was
Right.
I? Was it random? Was it
Mhm.
not random? Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Me and James talked about that all the time.
Mhm.
What makes you prevalent to being abducted where other people seemingly either don't know or have never been abducted. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know
Right.
if it's because maybe your paranormal experiences and your gifts, maybe you're like a beacon and they can pick up on that, or
That's
maybe it was
Mhm.
that program you talked about that
oh,
for the gifted that you went in, then because people in super soldier programs talk about being pulled out of class and putting in a special program. So
Mhm.
maybe that
Mhm.
was kind of what
yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
remember I was talking to Laura Eisenhower, and she said she's the one that she's like, "Oh yeah, no, that gifted and talented program, that's secret space program stuff. That's
Mhm.
how." And I'm like, "Ooh." So
Mhm.
that kind of bothered me a little bit, but my parents had intervened at a point in the preschool. Like, at then, kids, like, did not go to preschool at 4 years old. Just didn't happen. We went to kindergarten half day at 5. We didn't have this preschool stuff, when I was growing up. So, I know that I had gone and she had, and she was always, like, kind of, her gifts and abilities, like, she'd be able to hold something of somebody's in her hand, and she'd be able to tell you all about them. My aunt,
Mm.
like, could read playing cards, like, they'd have seances, and I as a kid, my grandma and I were like, and so I
Right.
remember going and being in the other room, and they're having their seance in the other room. Um, and then I know that a lot of it had come true because they said, "She's gonna fall off stairs," and da, 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 and I didn't even know that was said. Took a nosedive, cracked my head, like, right down those stairs.
Hmm.
But it yeah, and I know, like, there was a group of them back then that used to get together, and she used to have, like, one of the Ouija boards, the wooden ones with the glass. I was always, like, amazed by that as a
Mm.
child, and she got rid of it, and she said it levitated the table, and I was like,
Right.
and, she's not gonna make that up. So, she's like, "It levitated the table, you can't have that." I was like, "Grandma,
Time to go.
I created this thing," but yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's
was never afraid, it's like I always knew, and I remember the first, well, I don't can't say it's a first contact, but I remember laying, in a bed at her house. We had, like, we called it the twins room. It was my aunt's back in the day that she had converted it to mine, and, I remember knowing somebody was there, feeling like they held my hand, and then when it left, I felt like this kinda wind, and it shut the fan off and turned the fan on, and then I remember the next morning, I said, "Grandma, did the power go out?" And she said, "No." I said, "The power went out." She's like, "If the power went out, the alarm clocks would be blinking." I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay." So, that was kinda confirmation right there. I didn't tell her, and then I know, like, growing up, and from my mom's side, they're strong Catholic people. So what does she wanna do? She wants to call the priest to come over and do an exorcism. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm not, crawling up walls. My head's not spinning around, like,
Not yet, anyway.
oh my
right?
God.
Oh boy, I think we're going a little too far here. And then so I used to write these things, these stories, and then she knew, and they kind of freaked him out a little bit. But yeah, it on my mom or dad's side, my dad was deathly afraid of. I remember we were out eating at the kitchen counter, and all of a sudden you hear him back in his old bedroom yelling, and then you hear this like pounding, like something hit like the thing, and he comes running out. I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing?" He's like, "There was something at the end of my bed. I threw my shoes at it." And I'm like, "Oh my god,
Oh my God.
you
Now,
did
did your
what?"
dad have
Yeah.
any
So he
abilities
did.
at all, or was this just because of you and your mom?
My grandma says he did, and my aunt claims he does, but he was so
Hmm.
afraid of what he had
Okay.
seen that he didn't wanna go anywhere near it. I also have a brother who's an experiencer, and he will not talk much about it, and he was the one that
Hmm.
saw it with my son 2 weeks prior, so he just,
Oh,
like, he said that yeah, he gets real quiet. He loves and listens to everything that I'm doing. I'm like, "Eric, you should get and tell your story." And that's the only reason I think that my family doesn't think I'm, a total wackadoodle. But that and my grandmother saw one, and we knew she didn't like lie about stuff like that. And she was in Garnabello, and she's like, if it hadn't been raining, I would have. She's parked right by. She's like, it was over the tree, but that rain. So she was like ready to get out and flag it down. I don't know. I was like, at that
wow.
time, I was thinking, Grandma, what are you doing? Here I am, and I see him. Whoa! It's like apple didn't fall too far from the tree. So, yeah, she like back in the day, they used to be really afraid of him. She said there was a guy that had worked for my grandfather's business, and she said that she's like, Harry, that was his name. You're never gonna believe what I saw. And he's like, Josiel, you're not gonna believe what I saw. I have a picture of it. So she showed him a picture. It was the same thing that she had seen, and it was the same night. Hers was like 45
Mm.
minutes away. Garnaville is a little bit of a ways from Dubuque, but yeah. So then they're like, what? They destroyed the picture. I said, why did you destroy the picture? They well, they were afraid back then. They didn't want the men in black coming for them, or they were honestly afraid. Like back then, it was like, oh, you weren't supposed to see something. You didn't. So he got rid of I don't know if he shredded it, an old shredder, or what happened, but he got rid of
Wow.
that picture. But I
Huh.
do know that was yeah. So it was pretty
How
a
long were you
normal
in
childhood.
the special program? Do you remember how long you were in there
I
before your
didn't.
parents intervened?
Yeah, I would say maybe between 6 and 8 months, 6 months probably. There's a kind of a battle over it. When they pulled me out, my parents pulled me out, and then my grandma said, "You're just not for education, like blah blah blah." But something I should ask them again, like you know, why exactly they did yank me out the way that they did. It seems kind of,
Right. I was going
kind
to
of
ask
like,
you, do
did
you
something
remember
happen
any
to me?
other
They just kind of
students,
pulled
or
me.
have you contacted any other students to see if they've had any experiences or anything going on with them? Any of your old
I
classmates?
don't remember. Okay, so there was not many of us. I know that for a fact. I would say at the most 4 or 5, and I feel like it was a lot of pull off to the side individual things.
Okay. So you weren't in
Like
a classroom together
blocks, like
necessarily all
putting
the
them
time?
together. Yeah, well, we were in a classroom together, but it was like a one big classroom, but they took us like individually off to the side and would
Okay.
try
Okay.
different things like like a little, I felt like they were gonna be like well, they used IQ as a thing, like testing that, but they'd have us like maybe like arrange blocks, or maybe put this together, or maybe like, so, and like I said, at that time was the time that the spirit, like I was just starting to communicate with something. So I don't know. I often, my grandmother knows more about it because she was like, I know it was Montessori preschool, and that it would have been probably around, I was born in 79, so probably about 1983. I've tried to look, see if FOIA documents, anything can connect that, and the MRIs of my brain and the kidney being like that also has been like a big question. But like I said, if I hadn't been talking to Laura Eisenhower and she hadn't said it, I probably wouldn't even thought twice about it. So this
Right.
is probably within the last few months I found out, and I'm like, and then that's the ongoing theme. Like we just had Daryl James, we were talking to him, and he's a part of the secret space program, and he said the same thing about the. I was like, well, why do they want people? What's the deal with the IQs? And they said, well, there's an internal monologue that 30 to 50% of the people have. And I guess that higher IQ people are able to communicate. So he's like, then they're able to teach them telepathy, or able to teach them how to communicate differently than, I guess. I don't know. So, but other than that, it didn't help me when I was in school because I was kind of like, the troublemaker, gotten for talking. Imagine that. I went to a Catholic school after that. So, but my grandmother always took me to very strange places. Like we went to learn how to do Reiki and chakra stuff, and how to like she's always finding. I don't know, where does she find these things, but like we travel a little bit to like Monroe or something. I remember, and there's like a Reiki, so a chakra, was working on clearing out. I'm like, man, no other 7-year-old is doing this, I bet. So I did not have a conventional childhood, to say the least. I mean, like her house was like the portal of all. She'd get excited about it, and I understand now maybe why more. But I remember I was there as a kid, and all of a sudden, like we heard something. My cousin Melissa was with me, and all of a sudden it's like, poof, and every cabinet in her kitchen was open, and I was like,
Wow.
we should get
Oh.
out of here. Let's go. And we weren't that old. So maybe like 12, 11, 12 when that happened. So yeah, all sorts of things. Like I became very comfortable with the paranormal. Like I said, like I go to the Eidenberg Manor. Have you guys ever been there? It's in
No.
it's not too far. Oh God, you'd love it. Oh, it's, let me think of where it is real quick. Like and you can rent it out. It's like $250 for the night, and things I've never been disappointed going there. There's always
Hmm.
been something that has happened, or like at the first time I went on a tour, a lady starts screaming and somebody puts down their light down on her leg and hear her pant legs like going up, and I was like, whoa, I gotta spend the night here. Like because it was just like a tour that we jumped on. I'm like, and I'm coming here, and I've been like there except for this past year. I think it's like 7 years in a row. I love it. Lady always be like, "Don't you get tired?" And I was like, "No, I could get tired of this. Every time we're here, something happens." So yeah, it's pretty cool. Scotch Grove, Iowa, it is, and so it's like
Okay.
on the way to Cedar Rapids. Yeah, look into it.
Hmm.
It's awesome.
Yep.
And, like
I've been to Cedar
paranormal,
Rapids, but I've
love
never.
it.
I actually I didn't even know of that house.
Oh, yeah, and then you know what? It's
Wow.
not that far. It's about 20 minutes away from where I saw the UFO. So, but Scotch Grove,
Mm.
it's
Oh,
like an old mental institute, like a poor farm is what they call it. But it's set up. I mean, it's huge, huge. There's different
Wow.
levels, and it's like an old hospital. And the Joker, they say, is down in the basement. And I've got some really cool pictures coming out of there.
wow.
A joker's in the
And yeah,
basement.
well, that's what they call him, the Joker.
Wow.
Oh, it reminds me
So
of the Joker.
do you see these
Um,
apparitions, or is it mostly just you sense them,
mm,
or you just hear them, like you said, mentally, or
That's what I was going to ask if
I'm
she
bad
actually has seen
here.
him.
I do
huh?
hear, like, it takes me a little bit, but know I see the majority of them. I see, and then,
Okay.
Okay.
I am able to do like what I do is I'll utilize flash photography because I know where they're at, and I can see them, and then I'll see how close they look to what I saw of them, and
Okay.
they're pretty close. Like, and sometimes they'll show me how they died or what they look like when like one was like as color of his skin. I remember I was describing, and they're like, "No, that's a guy. He died. He killed himself. He's car and from asphyxiation. I guess it kind of looks like that." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's how he's showing me himself." I don't connect a lot to their emotions either, so I'm not like an empath, I wouldn't say. I'm the one that goes in, and I've had ghost hunting groups get really mad at me about this, but I'll go in and I start pounding on the walls. I'm like, "Wake up, time to get your medication." I'm like, "I'm going through your drawers, I'm laying on your bed." And then people are like, like, I got a lady that literally booted me from a group for this whole. I said, she's like, "We sometimes wait for like 8 to 10 hours for our EVP." I was like, "What? That's a waste of time." I said, "We'll get that EVP going in no time." I flipped it on, and so it was so funny. And she's
That
like,
sounds like you.
"You scared people." I was like, "Well, are they ghost hunters or are they not?" And she's like, "We do it this way." And I was like, "Okay, well, clearly I'm just not
Wow.
made for this group." But yeah, they cut
Like,
me
time to
quick.
wake up.
So are
Yeah,
they
oh yeah, I'd be
asking
like, and
you?
they're
Are they asking you to help them cross over, or just to get in contact with relatives? And like you said, they wanted you to give gifts out to people and of their loved ones or friends, but do they ask to help get crossed over at all?
a lot of times those are the ones that don't know that they're crossed over. So what we do is we like open up the white light for them, like, and be like, "Go to and then I heard, no, that's a bad thing. That's a soul trap. I don't know. But that's
Oh,
always the way that I was taught is if they're there to go to the white light, to go to the white
Mhm.
light. So and the process is so crazy because when you can feel it happening, you can feel like and a lot of times it's by like I know one time I went to an undisclosed location and I picked up on this little girl named M, and I had the name, like part of her name. I had the whole scenario. Her uncle, alcoholic, blah blah blah, and he was keeping her there. So it was like getting her big enough and strong enough to get to that white light, and you could just feel her. You could just feel this, heavy like density just lifted, and she just, and I know we could tell when she left. And so it's just like I don't know how to explain it. It's a really it's a cool feeling. I just hope I didn't put him in a soul trap,
right.
It would feel really
Yeah, I
bad
don't know.
if I
I've
sent
heard
somebody
both
back through
ways,
this
that you're
again.
not supposed to help them. supposed to keep them away from the light. Then other people say, no, you have to go to the light. So, I mean,
Yeah.
being raised in a church, we always taught that light was good. So I don't know.
I believe you should go
Yeah.
to the light.
Yeah. Me too. I hope. I guess we'll find out. I said if I have to do another round of this,
Almost
I
every
guess.
movie, if you want to go by movies, they always say go to the light. So I don't know.
Right.
I would love to find a near-death experiencer that had sadly left and came back. I'm in the process of looking for one because I feel like that could answer some questions. Like, did you go towards the light?
Yeah.
Or did you avoid the light? Yeah. So
Well, actually, I
that's
think
confusing. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Because when they don't go towards the
actually, I
light, they're
think
stuck
all the
here.
near-death experiencers stories that I've ever heard, they always talk about going to the light or going
Mhm.
towards a bright light, whether it's a tunnel or they just see a
Right.
bright light.
And then seeing relatives and friends.
That's what I thought
Mhm.
too.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Being
No, I think it's
met by
they don't
them and,
want you to go
sometimes
through the light, because they do want you to get soul trapped.
probably
So
not.
I think they twisted it around saying don't go through the light because they're trying to trap people. So yeah, I think we're supposed to go through the light.
I don't
And even
know.
those who are
No, I
trapped,
don't
you're
know
I
what to
don't
do.
trust, especially it's being said right now. Like everything that's going on in this world right now, I think maybe I'll just take my chances and go to that light. Because it's just been up recently, and someone's like, "No, don't go to the light. It's a soul trap." And I'm like, "Oh man!" Like I just, I hope that's not what I've been doing here for the last 20 years. Because I always tell them, "Go to the white light. You see the white light opening up. Go to that white light." And your friends and family, they're waiting for you. It's like, man, they would probably be mad at me right now.
I hope when I cross over, if I see the light, I hope it's a warm and loving feeling, and I see my past relatives there. Then I guess I'll make that decision and go that way, unless all of a sudden grandma comes out and tells me, no, don't go that way. I don't know.
Now, if you could know, I'll be able to see you, right? So if you cross before I do, you come find me. You remember what my voice sounds like, what I look like, come find me. And then you can tell me the answer so I know whether or not we're supposed to go to that white light or not.
Go haunt Coley.
Flick the lights on or off or something. Yeah.
Something.
I love it.
Well, how's that going to be different than
My son
anybody
is
else what
convinced.
they do?
My son is convinced I'm gonna live in like an old haunted place when I get older. He's like,
Oh,
I was like, whoa, that's
you
crazy.
should.
Yeah, but where can we find
You should
one?
get a group of people and buy like a Munster House looking kind of thing and have your guys'
Oh
stuff
yeah,
there.
yeah. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it. Yeah, anything paranormal does not scare me. It does not scare me in the slightest. So I have no fear when it comes to it. But I've seen other people like where they kind of always tell people, if you're in a bad emotional state or you feel like you're connecting a little, like when I see them maybe connecting a little too much to a spirit, I'll be like, you got to go outside for a little bit and take a break here because you don't want that coming home with you, And I'm all but one time I went to a lady in our group and she did Reiki and she did the Akashic records, opened up my Akashic records. And I could instantly see something and I'm like, I didn't think anything else was supposed to be here. And she's like, that's my ex-father-in-law. And I'm like, well, why is he here though? Because you're supposed to have this whole place cleared. And then I left with somebody like coming up and it's baring its teeth at me. And it wasn't like I was scared by it. I was like annoyed by it. And I'd be sitting there talking to people and I'd be like, and they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. There's nothing wrong. Like, get away, And my aunt, she could always tell when I could see him. She's like, what are you seeing? I said, this thing keeps coming and baring its teeth at me. Okay. It's a person, but it's somebody who is very abusive in their human life. And I don't know. They keep telling me to shh. And like, I was like, I don't like it at all. So I went back to my group and I was like, hey, can you help me get rid of this thing? Because it's coming and it's really driving me crazy. Like, coming and I'm at different places or I'm on the phone. All of a sudden there it comes again. Like, I'm like, honestly, like, what are you doing? So that was probably the worst that I've had with that type of spirit. But Yeah, I've never had like poltergeists or anything like that I've seen, but I don't know. I've been in like I said in some pretty haunted places, but I've never had anything like that occur.
Since you saw your Akashic records or got some
Have you guys?
information from that, have you figured out any of your past lives or anything?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, yes, yes.
What
That
what
was
time period
interesting
were
because
you, what
when
time period
she
were you?
was I was going the first one that I went into, I was probably like maybe the 1600s. I was Native American, or can you
Mm.
say that? I don't know. What it was. I remember her doing it when she first did it, and I could see this. Okay, this guy. It looked like the Grim Reaper almost, but his face was like forming, and it just kept changing and forming. And she could see what I was seeing. And I went back, and what came out of it was that I was a Native American, and I was so certain that this was the way to go. And then I could see what happened, and it left like my whole tribe into like bloody, it didn't. And I was so certain, like, this is the right way to go, guys, leading him there, that I carried that. And yeah, so what came of it too is like, how you like you create something. I'd always have to, like, I remember when I first went to aviation school and I was taking off for my first time in my solo, and I had to think I was going to crash to know I was going to make it. I'm not even joking. Like, I went out there, I'm like, I'm going to crash that airplane. I'm going to crash that airplane.
Oh
And da
my.
da da da. Because that was, yeah, because if I if I said I wasn't going to crash that airplane, I would have crashed that airplane. I'm telling you. So they said that had something to do with the like reverse like mirror image of it. So yeah, and I was like, man, but there's where I was so certain. And then the second one I went into, I remember looking, and I had this dark, like, I would say like a short haircut. I'm not sure what they would call the
Like a Bob?
I'm saying maybe like 20s era. Yeah, kind of short. And I was some sort of spy, and I was on a train.
Oh.
And I remember that was really intriguing. Yeah. I
Hmm.
wanted to know more about that one. I wanted the Native American one. I slaughtered those people, it's like, don't want to go back there. But they were showing me on a train, but then I think I like poisoned somebody, or I did. So I don't know what kind of spy I was. But like, and allegedly that's what happened. But you can see it all occur. Yeah, I think I poisoned somebody on the train.
So were
I'm
any of your
telling.
past lives anywhere like say Roman or Egypt, or were you always in the US or?
Yeah, I would love to have gone back further than that. I hadn't. The first one started when I led my tribe and slaughtered them. I mean, you could
Hmm.
see like the tomahawks, like, and it's
Oh
just like
man.
this mass, like, yeah. So she said that's why I see everything in mirror image, and I have to think that the plane's gonna
Hmm.
crash, so it won't.
Oh.
Yeah. So if anything,
So
if
do
I
you
go to the
remember this?
casino and I think I'm gonna win. Oh, sorry.
Do
Go
you
ahead.
remember this through a regression? Is that you got a regression done?
Mm-mm.
No?
The Akashic, they open your Akashic records. Yeah.
So you remember
Well,
this
I
on your
don't.
own?
I don't consider. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
she could see
Okay.
it too, and she's like, "Oh, that's the first when you come in contact with somebody who's like has some sort of gift like that, it intensifies everything." So she was so excited because that was her first real experience. She could see everything that I was seeing. She
Mm.
claims anyway. And so when I was talking to her about it, she could see, like, she knew she could like literally narrate it. And I was like,
Oh.
whoa, and then that guy that was by her, I stopped her like 3 different times. I said, whoa, there's somebody in the room. There's somebody in the room. And I haven't seen anything like this. It's not human. So,
Hmm.
and she's like, I said, it's like something in a cloak. I said, but its face keeps changing, like shape,
Wow.
like it's like 30 different people. So she's like, it's okay. It's okay. We're just going to keep going. And then so I stopped her again. I said, he's coming forward again. Like if it's a Grim Reaper, I don't know. They're telling me I slaughtered people and now I'm poisoning them on trains. Like, this might not be a good guy. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, after I got through the experience, I was like,
Wow.
don't turn me in. I don't. Yeah, so apparently I had some excitement before this life, but I would love to go back
Wow.
to those times. Like, if I was, I mean, they say I'm an old soul. I believe I am an old soul, but I don't know how old of a soul. My grandmother, I believe, probably would go back into that era. I definitely think she would have.
Wow. That's
But
very
yeah, that's a
interesting.
good question. That would be very, yeah. Yeah, I would
I feel
love
like
to
when
know
we
what
pass,
like those Egyptians and
I feel like when we pass on, there
what's
is
that?
no time. When I feel that when we pass
Yeah, oh
on, there
yeah,
is
no,
no
time's totally different.
time. So we're going to be able to
Mhm.
visit, go back to our memories and go to grandma and grandpa's farm and do this and do that. And I'm still wondering if that's where ghosts come in, that people are accidentally interfering with those who are already crossed and they're just visiting a place,
Oh,
reminiscing.
that could be. I remember when my son's dad died when he was 18 months. He's 16, it's okay. So, but after he died, we didn't know all the details to it. We still don't. There's like a mystery. But went to Arizona, stayed with my sister for a couple weeks just to kind of get out. Took my son with me and was just like traumatized at that time. Anyway, it was before the autopsy came back, and I remember that he would come. He really, it was like maybe like a good week and a half before I had any contact with him again. But then he was my brothers saw him, like my mom heard, like there was just so many things that happened. But when he took me, we went to this place and was like flying or soaring over. And I just remember like how beautiful and peaceful it was. So I think
Hmm.
that was like his way of showing me, but there was no time. There was no like,
Mhm.
real wind unless you pretty well simulated any type of things. We just went, it was like high, I don't know what they're called, like, but they're those hay flower, I don't know, like, just kind of go over, and then we went to the trees, and like, and it was very, very peaceful, very peaceful.
Well,
I've
I
tried
would
out of body
assume
experiences, but
when you cross over, and I'm just going to say heaven because that's how I was raised. When you go to heaven,
Mhm.
that you will be in the environment that you've wished for. You think what heaven will be like, whether it's wheat
Mhm.
fields and farm life, or Jane wants a little cabin by a stream with butterflies and all kinds of animals that come up and talk to her. So to me, in my mind, I think that's the experience that you have, is whatever is going to make you happy, and whatever your dreamland would be.
oh, so I got to get that in my head. I want to go to the beach. I really want to go to the beach.
The
I
beach.
really want, yeah, the
Yeah, you could be
beach.
on a
Oh yes,
tropical island with
take a
palms
beach.
and a
Try,
little bit of white
yeah, yeah.
breeze
Now
and
we're
nice blue
talking.
waves, and
Yes, catered to.
yeah,
I'll get it.
Sitting next to
Like, I
Sasquatch.
just probably manifest anything, but
yeah, you could
yeah,
have Sasquatch sitting
I'm
next to
out
you having a Mai
vegan.
Tai with you, and
Yeah, have a Mai Tai with Sasquatch. Yeah.
Ask them, yeah. Why have you been avoiding me, mister? Like, so do you guys ever go on and go out and hunt Bigfoot? Because I'd love to go. I really would
We
love to.
I
I've
don't have to go
tried.
out and hunt. I just go in my backyard. I've never seen one, but I have sensed
Oh,
them.
okay.
I've heard all kinds of stuff. I sense that they're close by. I can smell different weird things. I think they have been close to me in my backyard. Something
Mhm.
dropped behind me one day, and so yeah, I've had the experiences, but I've never seen one yet.
we
But
want
I
to
know
go.
they're around here.
Oh, wow.
We want to go investigating. We got areas around us that we feel
Yeah.
that would be good spots to go, but we haven't solved or figured out all the stuff around our property yet. So, I mean, we have orbs and
Mm.
skyfish, and we feel like, maybe there's a
Oh,
clan that
fun.
come in and out of our area, although they
Mhm.
haven't presented themselves to us yet,
Mhm.
but we have a connection with them, and we're trying to communicate or to get close to them, but we haven't
Mhm.
achieved that yet. So we haven't ventured very far out away from where we live.
So I've just heard noises. I have not
Oh,
seen
okay.
one yet, but I'm really hoping that when the cornfield comes down right now, right on our property, we've got this privacy fence of a stupid cornfield. So once that's down, we'll be able to
Oh,
see all around. Right now, we can't see anything. We're limited with
yeah,
all the
yeah,
rows of
yeah.
corn. And even with our
Yeah.
camera, we've got
Oh,
a
yeah.
camera on our barn, and you can barely see back behind the barn. There's nothing but tassels. So I'm not able to
Yeah.
investigate right now. But yeah, I
Welcome to the
know they're around
Midwest.
here.
I always say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're in the Midwest.
There's a there's a place probably like 15 minutes from here. It's around the same area that I would like the UFO saw the first UFO. They claim to have had like 6 sightings on their property, and I always wanted to track it down and see. So if you guys are ever interested in going out and exploring, I definitely drive and meet you guys somewhere or do some.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that'd be
cool.
cool.
Let me know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're
It's
not
not
too far
too
away from
often
you
you get, you know, fellow Midwesterners. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's
That's
pretty
right.
cool. So I was, yeah, when he reached out, I was like, heck yeah, I'll do it. Like, for sure. Iowa, like Midwest.
Well, we're
I'm all
getting
about
close
it.
to the hour and a half, and you have a show coming up pretty soon.
I
Now it
know.
starts at
Oh
8. Your
gosh,
show's
it
at
went
8
that
or 9?
fast. It will start at 8. Yeah, we're
At 8?
we have at 8. Yeah. Well, we had a little pre-record, so I bought some extra time, but
Okay.
yeah, we have some interesting guests. So I really appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. I've had a blast.
Oh, it's been
Yeah, this
fun
has been
having you. You'll have
great.
to come back. We'll have to get you back on, and
Yep.
we'll continue
Oh
down
yeah.
this route and see where else we can go.
Anytime. Anytime. Yes, definitely. It was an honor though. I appreciate you asking me. So I was excited for this one.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know everybody in chats enjoyed it. They've been pretty interested in what been talking about, and so don't go away. Stay right there. We'll just say bye to everybody in chat, and thank you all for coming. We love you, and thank you for participating in chat. Sorry I didn't see too many questions to bring up on screen.
Yeah, I've been
Otherwise
trying
I
to
would have,
watch.
but
Yeah.
be sure to go over and watch Coley and Marquise coming up, and I believe they put it in chat. If you guys saw the link in chat, they were
Yeah.
sharing it.
Tim Mothman just posted it again. Thank you, Tim.
There you go. So make sure you head over there and see Coley and Marquise and hang out with them, because
Love
I
our
know we'll be
team.
heading over there ourselves and hanging out in chat.
Mm-hmm.
And don't
I'll be
forget.
looking for you guys. And
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll be there.
So don't forget, hit the like, share, and subscribe. Not only on our channel, but Marquise and Coley's. Help them out, show them some love, and we'll see you next time. We love you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Keep
your
looking up.
vibration high. Keep your vibration
See you soon. Yes. Bye.
Yeah.